I said I would do a follow-up video on IEMs, what you need, how you plug it together to make it all work. So we're going with wired IEMs. The pros all use wireless. There's pros and cons to both, but the main benefit of wired IEMs is they're significantly cheaper. So that's why we're going with that. So for us, it's a case of how do we get the signal from the mixer to our IEMs. Since we're not standing right next to the mixer, we need a cable to take the signal from the mixer to where we are. Then we need something that can turn that signal and amplify it for the IEMs. Now this is what we're using, and these are specifically designed for wired IEMs. So the other end of this plugs into the mixer. Right, that's that problem solved. The next problem is, as guitarists, we're used to having a lead dragging around. We're used to that. But having another one for the IEMs is a real pain. It gets all tangled and you trip over it and it's just not great. So what Darren and I have come up with is a combined lead. We both have made our own. The idea was we've made different ones. The idea is we'll compare and see which way is best. But they're both fundamentally the same, is you've got one lead that has two connections. So this is the end that goes into my guitar, and this is where I plug my IEMs in. And on the other end, that plugs into my pedal board, and that plugs into the headphone amp. And that way I've got the signal coming from the pedal board up to me with just one cable, but I get two things in that cable. So what that means is that this goes where you plug your guitar in. So I have a pedal board, so this goes on my pedal board. Whereas if I was just plugging my guitar straight into my amp, then this would sit on top of my amp. Yeah. If you've got a pedal board, one other neat thing is you can then plug this into your pedal board power supply, so you don't need to have batteries. And don't need to have an external power supply if you're going to stick this on top of your amp. You could use batteries, or otherwise you have to have an external power supply, which is just another thing and another faff. So having it on a pedal board is really neat. So that's basically it. Well, the other thing I was going to show you was the software that we use to control it. Now there's multiple apps. There's a PC app, which is what I'm going to show you. There's also an Android app that can run on tablets and phones. There's an Apple app that runs on tablet and phones. I think there's even a Linux version. I mean, normally I would use the tablet. The software is subtly different between each version, but fundamentally it's the same. So I'm going to show you the desktop version just because it's easier to film with my phone. So here's the software that's controlling the mixer. And what it's showing right now is basically you've got all the different channels. So you can see in yellow we've got the microphones, in green we've got the guitars, in blue I've set it up for the drums if you ever to make up the kit, but obviously in rehearsal and practice etc we don't. And then what this is showing, so you've got the main mix, which is what's currently selected. Where's my mouse pointer going? There. Yeah. And so in effect what's going through the PA, what you'll hear right now is basically my microphone and then Sandy and Darren's microphones a little bit quieter, which is kind of a ballpark where we probably would want to be. But where this whole thing comes into its own is we have 6 other mixes which we can use for IEMs. So for example, if I click here, I'll go back, here's the main mix. If I click here, here's Sandy's IEM mix, which I've set up. Now, it's got Sandy's vocal mic loudest, because generally you want to hear yourself louder than everything else. And then he's got, obviously, the other microphones, and he's got his guitar, but he hasn't got any of my guitar or any bass yet. He may want to add some depending on what he wants. Likewise, if I flick Darren's mix. Now, Darren's mic is louder than the others. Darren's got some bass, doesn't have any guitars yet. If I flick a mix for Chris, hint hint, Chris has got microphones, He hasn't got any guitars or bass yet. And then my mix, so again, my microphone is louder because you want to hear yourself louder. I've got my guitar. I haven't got San's guitar or bass yet until we get in the room and hear what it sounds like. So this is where the whole thing really comes into its own, is the fact that you can dial in exactly what you want to hear, separate from everyone else and separate from what the audience hears. That's the whole point of it.